Hey Retro fans, welcome to episode 4 of Retro Gaming Memories. I'm going to do something a little bit different this week, in that I'm not really talking about a console, memories of a console or a computer or anything. This week I'm going to be talking about buying games, memories of buying games, why we still like to buy games. Well, I'm presuming you do. If you're a video game collector and you're watching this, then I'm presuming that you still buy games. Even if it's new stuff, modern games, but I'm going to be talking about the memories of buying retro games, because that's what we're here for. And the psychology of it, I don't know what it is about buying games, but we'll talk about that, or I'll ramble about that. That's what I do. I just go off on tangents and talk a lot of rubbish. Anyway, in episode 2 of Retro Gaming Memories, I told the story of how I got my Amstrad CPC for Christmas. It was my first computer, and it came along at a time that I started to have a little bit disposable income, i.e. pocket money. My Atari 2600 was the first console that I got when I was a kid, when I was young, but I really didn't buy any of my own games. There was a couple, but it wasn't the obsession that happened with the Amstrad, primarily because the games were so expensive. But the first memories I've got of actually buying games, really, that kick-started this obsession that I've still got, 35 years later, was for my Amstrad. Now in episode 2 of the show, I talk about how I got the Amstrad for Christmas, and I got the Amsoft 12 pack, which was 12 cassettes, a sort of starter software pack. And I think there was about 8 games in that pack, which I got for Christmas, obviously. And I played all of those games. I'd load a game up, have a few goes, try the next one, have a few goes, try the next one, have a few goes. And it was really kind of rapid turnover. And then I'd think, right, I really liked that one, I'll go back and play that again. That one wasn't so good, maybe leave that to the side. And kind of whittled it down to a list of games that I really liked. And this was Christmas Day, Boxing Day. I'd kind of whittled it down and kind of worked out my favourites and really enjoyed replaying these games. As you do when you're a kid and you get something like a computer or console, you get a limited amount of stuff with it because it's brand new. So I had those 8 games, whatever it was, and you just played them over and over and over again. The excitement, on Boxing Day after Christmas Day, and the kind of everything's died down a little bit. You've been and visited all the relatives and all that kind of stuff. Boxing Day is when you can sort of settle down and play with your presents and stuff. And I did that on my Amstrad. I played these tapes over and over and over again, whole day. And it was great. But something clicked inside, and I didn't realise it at the time. But I had basically become essentially addicted to video games, to that trying something new, and the act of having a new tape and putting it in and playing the game and seeing what it was like and then trying something else. Excuse me. And that, I didn't realise at the time, but that was, it gave me a little buzz. It was a bit of an addiction. And I didn't really have that with Atari. The Atari was a brilliant system, and I loved it, and I loved playing games, and that kind of got me hooked on the whole home games thing. But I didn't have the same need to buy new games for the Atari, because, like I say, I didn't have disposable income. I couldn't go and buy an Atari game every week because they were so expensive for a start. And I didn't have money to go and buy these things. So, there was a couple of occasions that I bought games with birthday money and all that kind of stuff, but it was a big decision because all your money went on one game. So when the Amstrad came out, when I got my Amstrad, the software was, $8.95, $9.95 for a full price title, which was a quarter of the price of an Atari game. Atari games were still 30-40 quid. So to be able to buy a brand new game for 10 quid, bargain. I'm sold. even though I didn't have 10 quid to my name back in those days. But something else happened, and it was a really astute business move by whoever came up with it. I don't know who decided to do it, but budget titles basically is going to be the predominance of this video. When I got my Amstrad, and I talk a little bit about this in episode 2, when I got my Amstrad, I went on, Boxing Day or the 27th, just after Christmas anyway, and we were uptown, as we always did, and I wanted to buy, I had a little bit of Christmas money, and I wanted to buy a new game from Amstrad. Even though I had 8 games that were literally 2 days old or 3 days old, I wanted more. I had to have more to see what this thing could do. So we went into various shops, but randomly ended up in Boots in Princess Street in Edinburgh. And upstairs in Boots they used to have an audio-visual department, as well as all the kind of household electronics, all the sort of beauty electronics, hair dryers and hair curlers and whatever other things people heat their face up with. They had all that kind of stuff, and shavers and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't interested in that because I was only, 10. But they had records and tapes. No CDs at that point, no DVDs or anything. There was records and tapes and videos. But they had this brand new section which was computer games. And I remember going up and finding the bit that said Amstrad, because there was Commodore 64 and Spectrum and BBC and all the other kind of variants of computers, with all the tapes all different, laid out. But I looked for Amstrad, and they had some full price titles, but I kind of discounted them because I had some Christmas money. I had maybe £5 or something like that. So I just kind of scanned, and there were these tapes, and they were only £1.99, and I was like, oh, what is this? Why are they so cheap? But it was budget software, and like I say, I don't know who came up with the idea to run budget software, but whoever they were was a marketing genius, because kids didn't have a lot of money, but they were affordable to me. Budget software was affordable. So I looked, and cunningly it was at the right height for me. The full price stuff was kind of up top shelf, because that's where all the mums and dads would be, but kids, the budget software kind of started at your eye level and down. So, I remember having a look, and there were all these different types of games and all these cassettes all over the place. And some of the artwork on the covers was tremendous. Some of it was god awful. It looked like somebody had coloured it in on the back of a fag packet. It was terrible, But I remember seeing this very distinctive layout, this kind of blue checkered thing, with some really cracking artwork on it. And I thought, what's that? That looks really distinctive. And they had quite a few, maybe 6 or 7 tapes, but all with the same sort of grid system on them. And I thought, that looks really good. What is this? And it was Mastertronic games. And they had a few different ones. And like I say, I've covered this in the Amstrad one. And basically I picked 2. I picked Formula 1 Simulator and Finders Keepers. And I have Formula 1 Simulator here. And the thing is, right, is back in the day, I wish I had more of these actually, but they were all laid out, face on like that, so you got to see all these things. The bigger releases were all kind of end on, but these ones were all facing you. And I remember picking it up, and it was like this. I've taken the tape out of this because you picked up the case, and there was no tape in it, but you could pick up the case, and you could open it, and you have a little look. And you opened it up, and there's the graphics. The screenshots, let's see. And Mastertronic were famous for doing this. I don't know if they invented this layout or whatever, but you got cracking artwork, and you thought, right, that's brilliant, and this whole distinctive thing. And you open it up, and it's the screen displays. And they kept that throughout at least all their 8 bits. the screen displays, you could see what the screen was, and then on the back were the instructions for the game. So you could read the aim of the game, and you knew all what it was about, and it was fascinating. And seeing these screenshots, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And you can imagine, you know, you're, as a kid, your brain goes into overdrive, and, oh my god, this is amazing. And it's only $1.99, it says it right there. I thought, right, I need to have these. So I bought Formula 1 Simulator and Finders Keepers, and got them home, loaded up Formula 1 Simulator, and that was it. I was hooked, you know. Great music. Really, when I was a kid, it was a really hard game because if you put it on a manual transmission, you have to be really fast with your gears, otherwise you blow your engine. So as a kid, I didn't understand any of that, so I'd try and drive, and it would make this horrible whining noise, and then the screen would go all flashy and there would be bangs because I'd blown up the car. But, you know, it was amazing, and I loved it, and I loved that I had bought my own games. I don't know what it was, it kind of felt special that I'd bought my own games. But that act of buying those games was a very slippery slope that has lasted with me to this day, because, like I say, that I didn't realise it at the time, but there was a little bit of a buzz, you know, that I had gone in and seen all this stuff laid out, and taking it all in, and perusing it all, and making a decision, and looking at all the artwork. And, you know, I could quite happily go up the town in Edinburgh when I was a kid and spend an hour and a half looking at all the different games and reading them and making a real decision, and maybe having two in my hand, and then, you know, battling with myself, right, I can only afford one, what one am I going to get? And, you know, really whittling and taking my time to work all this stuff out. So I had a really good knowledge of all the software that was out when I was a kid, because I'd spent that much time looking at it all. And it was fantastic, you know, and it was exciting, and it still excites me to this day when I see not so much modern stuff. I don't know what it is about modern stuff, and I'll maybe come on to that later on, but sticking with the retro stuff, whenever you go to like a Replay in Blackpool or something like that, or somewhere where there's traders and they've got all the stuff laid out, and just browsing all that retro stuff, all that retro goodness, still gives me that little kick. And it's not quite the same, because I would love to go into a shop, and if anybody knows any shop that's like this in the UK, let me know, because although I'm in Scotland, you know, if there's retro stuff, I'll eventually get to it. But I'd love to go into a shop that was like the old school shops, where there are racks of these games set up like they were in the 80s, if you know what I mean. If you went into John Menzies or Virgin or HMV Electronics Boutique or whatever, any store that sold games, they were all laid out in a particular fashion, and just that browsing of games, I don't know what it is, it still excites me, and I love it, and it's a really bizarre thing to be talking about, but it's like an addiction, you know. It's really cool, and I really enjoy it. And I suppose it's probably what women are like when they see shoes, you know. If they see loads of shoes, they get all kind of excited and stuff. Sorry to generalise if you're a woman, but, you know, chances are you probably like shoes. I don't bother about shoes, but if there's games, I'm there. I'm away to have a look at them, you know, and I'm stuck in. But buying games was I just loved it. And the thing is that when you were a kid, you didn't have a lot of money, so, you know, if you were buying a full price game, it cost a lot of money. You know, like I say, they were $9.95 usually for full price cassette games. And not buying a full price game wasn't a guarantee that it was going to be a good game. There were some budget games that were better than full price releases. And what I used to do is wait on full price releases being released as budget releases. And that way, you know, if it wasn't very good, it didn't really matter too much. I still bought lots of full price games that I knew I really wanted, but you know, the budget thing was a great way to build up your collection. And when I was a kid, in 1985 to 1990 probably, there or thereabouts, So a 4-year span of having the Amstrad, I probably had about 250 games back in the day. You know, and which I thought was pretty good. So I was a collector, even though I didn't realise it back in the day. But something else I loved about the old games was something that's died out really. You still get these a little bit with modern stuff, but it's not the same. Because the budget stuff was so prevalent, and it was a great way for people, especially later on, you know, initially like with Formula 1, I keep looking down there, sorry, it's because Formula 1's sitting there. You know, the budget games that were out, some of them were original titles, but then later on, like I say, they cottoned on to the fact that they could re-release full price titles as budget titles. And that then, you know, got revenue I get from products that they already had. They didn't need to do anything apart from print a new label. So, but it was a great way for consumers, for young people, you know, which was predominantly what the computer industry was. It was young kids. It was a great way for them to buy lots of games. And another great way for kids to buy games was compilations, and that's what I miss. You still, like I say, you still get them today. You know, you maybe get 3 games on a disc or something like that. You know, the Hitman trilogy or whatever in PS4, or the Nathan Drake collection and all that kind of stuff, which is great. It's a great way to get, you know, 3 or 4 games on a compilation. But back in the day, for just a little bit more than a normal release, you could get these compilations. And I have one here as an example. We Are the Champions. Now, this was a great compilation, and I still remember getting this from Virgin in Princess Street. I was out shopping with my uncle, and we went up and had a look at the computer games in Virgin, and I'm ashamed to say that I was looking at the games, and I had £10. I had been working for him and done some jobs and stuff. Gave him a hand to do his house up a little bit, and he had given me a tenner. So I was looking, and you know, I looked at the full price releases, and they had this, and this was £12.95. And I remember saying, you know, looking at it, and he came across and he says, "Have you picked one?" I says, "Well, I really like this, but I've only got a tenner." And he says, "Oh, come on, I'll get it for you." And he gave me the extra cash to, or did he? No, he actually bought me. He gave me the £10 for working, but he bought me the actual thing, the game. So I made a tenner, and I got the game for free essentially. But this was a great compilation, although there were only 5 games on it. But they were great games. Barbarian, Renegade, IK Plus were all games that I had seen or played and loved. Hadn't played Super Sprint or Rampage, but I loved this compilation, and it was a great way to get loads of games for not a lot of money. And I've got lots of compilations, and I did have back in the day, because it was one of the main ways to get loads of games, and it felt great getting, you know, 8, 10, 12 games. In fact, some of them went up to a box of like 30 games or something like that for £14.95. You know, the compilations got a little bit ridiculous. But on average, you got about 10 games for your £12. And I loved that, you know, and I would get this, I'd buy it, and I'd get it in the bag, and I'd go and wait on the bus home. And when I was on the bus, you know, I'd open it up, and I'd get the manual out, and I'd have a little sniff. And I'd put that to the side, and, you know, I'd get the tapes out, and I'd have a look at the tapes. And I don't know why, a tape's a tape. But I'd have a look at it, and I'd have a look at the sort of artwork on the tape, and see which games were on which tapes and all that kind of stuff. And I'd put them back in the case, and then I'd sit on the bus, and I'd read the manual, and I'd have a look, and, you know, pictures, all cracking me pictures and things. And I used to sit and copy those and draw them and all that kind of stuff. But then, you know, and I would read about how to load it on other systems and stuff like that. Just nuts. You would read this thing from cover to cover. At least I did. But that was all part of buying the game. It wasn't just pick the game up, stick it in your pocket until you got home, you know, and then chuck it in your machine and wait on a 50 gig download happening. You got these, and you would, you know, you were excited. The whole thing was exciting. And when you got home, straight upstairs into your room, computer on, tape in, you know, whatever you were going to play first, put it on, and while it was loading, you'd be reading instructions again to make sure you knew how to play the game. Joystick sitting on your knee ready to go, looking at the loading screen, all that kind of thing. And it was a total buzz. And I don't know why it became that kind of buzz. I don't know what it is. And if you're the same, if you got that kind of excitement from buying games and that buzz that you had to go and buy more sort of thing, I suppose addiction is the best way to to talk about it. If you had that, then let me know. Just let me know that I'm not the only crazy one on the planet. But the thing is when you were a kid, like I've said, you didn't have that much money, so there was lots and lots of ways you could get games without spending too much money. Because when I was a kid and growing up in Edinburgh, there were shops like Virgin and HMV, and then laterally there was Electronics Boutique, which became Game eventually. And that was the kind of main high street stores. Boots, I suppose, Boots and John Menzies. Those were the kind of main stores in Princess Street, the main sort of shopping street in Edinburgh. And you could go there and you could buy new games, and that was fine. But if you wanted to stretch your money a little bit, there was a second-hand market. And I basically used to dot about, and usually in passing on bus, if I was sitting on the bus going into Princess Street or something like that, you would pass places and you'd be looking out the window and you would pass places, and I discovered a few shops. There's a place in Edinburgh called Dalry. It's just near Haymarket station, and there were a few shops that I used to frequent there, bookshops that sold comics and things like that. But there was a shop called Ruby's, and it was a second-hand shop essentially. But you used to go in, and it was I presume it was a husband and wife that ran the shop. I presume Ruby was the woman that ran the shop or owned it. And used to go in there, and they would be standing at the counter, which had all sorts of stuff. Like I say, it was a second-hand shop. Excuse me, I've got an itchy nose. So there was all sorts of just whatever in the counter. But up behind them they had game systems. So there was at the time there was the Sega Master System and things like that. And all sorts of, the more expensive stuff was obviously behind the counter. But opposite the counter, as you walked in on the left-hand side, there was a big rack, and it was all tapes, computer games. They had pretty sure they had a music section, but there was all the computer games. And they had Amstrad and Commodore 64 and Spectrum and all that kind of stuff. And you could buy a tape, it was maybe £1.20 for a game or something like that. But they had a great system where you could go in and trade. And you could either sell stuff for cash, or you could sort of get in-store credit. So what I used to do is buy games or take older games. I'd take maybe 10 or 12 tapes in and say, right, how much will you give me for that? So they'd maybe say, right, we'll give you £8 cash or £12 store credit. And I would always take the store credit because, you could pick all the different games that they had. So you basically just traded off your games and went home with a new stack of stuff, albeit second hand, but you went home with this stack of games. And if you had taken 10 or 12 games or whatever, because they would work bargains with you and all that kind of stuff. They were really good. And you'd maybe take that stack of games home, and if you'd got 10 games, maybe 7 of them would be good and 3 of them not so good. So you would take those 3 with another few back the next time and trade up and all that kind of stuff. And you just kept doing that. I'd do that maybe once a month or something like that. So it was a great way to get games cheaply. And there was a second-hand shop on the corner opposite Ruby's. I can't remember what it was called, but they used to have games as well. So there was all these sort of second-hand shops all over the place that had a small selection of games, and I got to know them. So I would kind of, on a Saturday as a kid, I'd go and get the bus and walk for miles. I'd get off at Dalry and go across to Ruby's and then this other second-hand shop, and then kind of work my way up to a couple of music stores that I used to go to. and then into Princess Street, and I'd walk up, and then you'd walk for miles and miles as a kid, and look at all the games, and I'd usually go home with a big bag of games, and it was fantastic, and I just love doing all that kind of stuff. But it's amazing when you think about how you used to get games back in the day. We used to buy budget stuff and would trade stuff up. You'd swap things with your pals, and occasionally there was some playground copying of games, but we'll talk about that in another episode. But there were other ways to get games as well, and I don't know if anybody will remember something that was really prevalent in the 80s, in the heyday. If you ever bought a computer magazine, whether it was Amstrad, Commodore, Spectrum, whatever, if you bought a computer magazine in the 80s, you would open it up and onto your lap would fall this sort of A5 square leaflet, and it was for the Home Computer Club, and it was a little gatefold thing with, I don't know, 20 bits of software on it. They had lots of games to get the kids interested, and there would be a couple of serious packages like art package or a music package or something like that. But the hook was that you could join the Home Computer Club. It was special introductory offer. I always said that, and there was a little section, a little tear-off section that you would fill in. And from memory, I've not seen one of these for years, but from memory, you picked 3 titles. I'm pretty sure it was. So each one had a little code, and they were all discounted. So if a game was $9.95 in the shops, your introductory offer might be $1.99 or something like that. So you'd go, oh, that's an absolute bargain, I'll have that. So you'd pick your software, excuse me, and there was always an offer with it, get these 3 titles really cheap. But the Amstrad version also came with the Cascade 50 games on one tape that I think everybody had, and it was god awful. It was 50 games written in BASIC that was just a complete waste of tape. I still have a copy of it up in my loft. It doesn't grace my collection, unfortunately, but yeah, so you got that free, and usually a little book, a sort of ladybird sized book, Your Home Micro, and it was a kind of introduction on what's a cassette deck and all that kind of stuff. So I, like thousands of others, joined the Home Computer Club. I really probably couldn't have afforded it at the time, but we did it anyway. Used to get my dad to write a cheque, and I'd give him my pocket money and he'd write the cheque and would send off. Because the thing is, you had to buy a game every month. That was the thing. If you didn't order a game, they would send you the editor's choice, which was really usually the most expensive thing in the bloody magazine. So you had to be quick to get your stuff in. No online ordering back in those days. The internet at that point didn't exist. Well, to home consumers anyway, I'll just caveat that. To home people, the internet didn't exist. But yeah, so you would order your games, you got this package. It was really exciting getting this package back with your introductory software. And I'm pretty sure my introductory stuff that I got was Beachhead 2, Winter Games, and I wish I could remember what the other one was. But I think I paid about £4 for whatever the 3 get. I can't remember what the third one was. But yeah, getting those, and getting the package coming through the post and ripping it open, and the excitement of getting these games in the post. I'd never ordered anything through the post before, because that was the other way that people used to do things. Obviously, was buying stuff mail order, but I didn't have a checkbook, and I didn't have a MasterCard or an Access, so I couldn't order that kind of stuff. But the Home Computer Club, my dad, like I say, my dad had a checkbook, and I could send off and get this stuff. But it was great, and I got some good software out of it, and it was usually about £1 or £1.50 cheaper than the shops for most of the stuff. It wasn't a great bargain, sometimes you got a no bad bargain, but it was great. It was a great way to get stuff, and I'm sure you had to stay in it for a year, before you could sort of quit out. And there were a couple of times that I forgot to order something, or I was too late in ordering things, and they would send me the editor's choice. So a couple of times I got the the image system it was called, which was an art package, and I think it was $14.95. You know, it should have been $29.99 or something like that. And it was for drawing sprites and just doing kind of general art stuff. And I used to play with it, but I didn't have a printer or anything like that. And it never occurred to me that I could do graphics and save them and send them off to companies. You know, theoretically I could have been a graphics artist for Ocean or something like that, because I didn't realise that that's how you did it. You know, I got no bad at drawing with these packages. And if I'd thought to save it off and, you know, send it off, who knows what would have happened. But anyway, I didn't do any of that. I used to just play with it and draw pictures and then switch it off. But there were a few games that I got that I, you know, wouldn't have normally picked. Infiltrator being one of them. It was a kind of helicopter simulator thing. Wasn't my kind of thing at all. But yeah. But anyway, listen, I'm waffling a lot of rubbish. But the Home Computer Club was a great thing that I remember doing back in the day. But moving slightly on, still talking about buying games and the memories of buying games, if you haven't fallen asleep yet. The thing I loved about buying games back in the day, you know, it started off with Formula 1 Simulator and just looking at the graphics and all that, looking at the inlay card and all that kind of stuff. And then moving up to these sort of 8-bit compilations and getting lots of stuff in the box, you know, a few tapes. Some of them had like 8 tapes in them and all that kind of stuff. But when you moved that on slightly, the thing I loved about the 16-bit era was because the games had become more complicated. You know, the manuals and things had to be more in depth. It wasn't enough to say, you know, push up, down, left, right, and fire or whatever. There was a lot more to it. But I used to love that. I used to love buying a game and getting this really heavy box. You felt as if you were getting something really good for your money. And I've got an example here. Grand Prix Simulator. You know, the continuing, I suppose, from the Formula 1 thing on the Amstrad. You know, when I got this, lots of discs in it, and it felt really heavy. And it felt heavier than it does just now because I've actually taken the stuff out from inside it. Because you got a big lump of stuff, as well as getting 4 discs or whatever it was. You got a key reference card. Ooh, that's exciting. Additional features card. A technical supplement. An even bigger technical supplement. And a huge thick manual. Look at the thickness of that. But the thing is that the manual didn't just tell you how to play the game. Now all those supplements and things, I used to sit, I would actually read all that stuff. I read everything that came with these, you know, and I don't know why. You know, most people just skip past it and throw it in the bin. But I loved reading all that stuff. But, you know, getting a big manual like this, and sometimes you thought, oh, it's a big thick manual and it had English and Spanish and French and German and Italian and whatever else in it, so your manual was actually only about that thick. But this, as a lot of the Microprose games did, told you how to play the game, but also, let me just see if I can find it. Just chat amongst yourselves. Come on, where is it? Yeah. Driving techniques. This told you Formula 1 driving techniques, the racing line, how to take corners. You know, modern games don't tell you how to drive a Formula 1 car. If you bought Gunship 2000, which was another Microprose game, it taught you the basics or the theory of how to fly a helicopter. Knights of the Sky had historical information in it and maps and all sorts of stuff. You got lots of stuff in a box and it was fantastic. You felt like you were getting a lot of value for your money. And I really missed that. I remember the PlayStation 3 era kind of started it, and the PS4 and Xbox One is just terrible for it. Where you buy a game, spend a lot of money on it, and you open up your clamshell case and you've got a disc in it. Now the disc is essentially just a coaster, because as soon as you put it in, you know, the game's unfinished, you put it in and you have to download a 50 gig patch, which means the game isn't finished. So for your money you get a case with a printed cover and a disc, which is fine, you know, and I know there's a lot more goes into modern games than, you know, did in the old days. But I remember feeling disappointed the first time, you know, when I saw these discs way before, excuse me, way before I actually got a PlayStation 4. But just the sort of disappointed, there wasn't even a manual in it. They don't give you a printed manual anymore. It's like, oh, it's online for your convenience. Bugger off. I want a manual. You know, so you get a pamphlet now telling you about Xbox Live or something. There's nothing in it apart from a disc, and that was so disappointing. You know, I was used to getting things for my money. Because even moving on to like the PlayStation era, you get something like Tekken 2, awesome. And you know, when you buy Tekken, you get your disc and you get your manual. Yeah, all good. But in this, you've got a demo disc. So even getting a demo disc, that's the autumn Christmas releases, probably from God, I can't remember when this came out. 94. So that's probably the autumn Christmas 94, 95 releases, whatever. But getting a demo disc, you just felt as if it was something extra. You know, and that's missing now from modern games. And maybe it's just me, you know. I don't like buying digital games because although you get the full game and the full experience, it just feels like money for nothing, especially when the games are the same price as a physical copy. You know, and I wish games would go back to kind of what they were. And maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just stuck in the 80s or whatever, or 90s. And I think that's predominantly why I still just play retro games more so than modern games, because modern games, every time you turn on a modern console, it downloads a huge update, which is basically the whole game again. You know, I can switch on my Amiga and stick a disc in and it still works, and there's no update, there was no patches, there's no nothing. You know, if it did have to be patched, or if there was any DLC, it was sold as an add-on pack, an expansion pack, which was optional, which you could buy if you wanted. But, you know, for your money, you didn't just get a couple of extra weapons or an extra multiplayer map. Who gives a shit about multiplayer maps? You would get a few discs and a new manual and a new box, and, you know, it would be extra missions or something like that. You know, and then if you got the budget release, which would be like the Game of the Year editions now, you got all the extra missions with it, and you'd be extra discs and manuals. So, you know, you could get a budget release which contained all the extra add-on packs, and it was like the Game of the Year editions that you get now, which has got all the DLC and all that crap on it. I don't know what it is about modern games. They don't do anything for me, really. You know, I do love playing some of them, and some of them are fantastic, but it just feels cheap. You know, you pre-order a game now, you spend a fortune on it, and you get extra, you know, a couple of extra weapons you can download that cost nothing. You know, back in the day you would get a soundtrack or an art book or a figure or something tangible for your money. You know, and I miss the days where you would buy a game and you would get lots of stuff with it. And, you know, maybe that's just me. A lot of people like digital content. You know, they're quite happy just to not to have lots of crap lying about. You know, everything's contained in your console. I like having stuff, and I'm not going to go off into the tangent, because I'm going to talk about, in another episode, I'm going to talk about emulation versus real stuff and collections and things like that. So I won't go into it here, because I've already rambled, and this is 40 minutes long. I've already rambled a lot of crap already, and I have gone off on random tangents, and I've probably forgot half of the stuff that I was wanting to talk about, and I've bored you senseless with lots of other stuff. But what are your feelings on it? What do you think? Do you like still buying games, or, you know, do you not really care? Is it just like, oh yeah, well, you know, I've got a game, brilliant? Or do you just buy any games that you see, or do you buy games to relive your childhood? You know, what pushes you to buy a game, if you still do? Like retro games I'm talking about, no modern stuff. You know, and do you like do you go for the kind of complete thing? You know, do you like the box with the manual and all the discs and the whole shooting match like you used to get back in the day, or will you just buy the discs? You know, you're quite happy with just the discs with no manual or anything. You know, would you be happy with a box of just tapes? You know, what kind of thing do you like? And you know, what memories have you got of buying games? What do you like the act of buying games and browsing for games? I've completely forgotten to talk about loads of stuff like when I was in Blackpool. Used to go to Fleetwood Market, you know, in Ingliston Market just outside Edinburgh, and seeing all the games on the stalls and all that kind of stuff. Forgot to talk about all that, and I won't go back into it because, like I say, this is going on too long. But listen, let me know what you think. Let me know. Do you get excited about retro games? Do you know, if you find something that you've always wanted on eBay, do you get excited about it? And when it arrives, do you kind of still do the same thing of opening it up and looking at all the stuff, or do you just go, I've wanted that and I'll put it on my shelf? What floats your boat with retro games? Why do you like buying games? Or why don't you buy games? You know, if you just emulate everything and you don't bother about games, why don't you buy games? Is it just because it never done anything for you? Or, you know, let me know what your thoughts are. At the end of the video, you'll see there's a couple of ways to contact me. You know, you can get me on Facebook, or I've got an email address. You can email me. You know, send me stuff. Send me your memories. Send me. Feel free to send me questions if there's anything you want to know about me, or you know, about my collection or anything like that. Get in touch. You know, I want to interact with you. You know, you can leave comments obviously on the videos and stuff, and I do try and read them, and I will get back to people. But let me know your memories, you know, and if you want me to share some of your memories, then email me and you know, just tell me that you're happy for me to read it out, and you know, if I get any feedback or whatever, I could maybe start like a sort of viewer mail type section where I can read these things out and share memories, you know, so that everybody else can get the feels about all this kind of stuff. So listen, I hope this episode has turned out alright. It is a bit different and it's just me talking nonsense. I hope it sparked some memories. And like I say, this is completely unscripted, so I have gone off on tangents, so I apologise if I did ramble and bored you silly. But I hope it's kind of triggered a few memories and you know, remembering what it used to be like to go into these stores and just seeing racks and racks of amazing games, you know, this portal and awesomeness. So yeah, anyway, that's going to do it for me for now. Please get in touch. You know, I love reading your comments. I'd love to get some emails from you and stuff, and just, you know, interact in the show. Down the line, we'll maybe do like a Facebook Live or something like that. You know, we'll see what happens. I've got a few ideas, competitions and all sorts. So please stay tuned, subscribe, share, tell your pals. You know, even if you think it's rubbish, tell your pals anyway. And get in touch. And yeah, I hope to see you soon.